Greetings and welcome to GatherVerse AI Summit 2023. We're so happy to have everyone that has joined us today. We have a lot of wood to chop. We have a little bit of time to do it. But let me say from the beginning and from the top that on the subject matter of artificial intelligence, I am not in love with it. There are many technologies that I enjoy, that I like, and in some ways celebrate. But of all my years that I've been studying and exploring, wondering and considering artificial intelligence, it's the one technology that abides within the eco-habitat of all emerging technologies that gives me the most pause. And I imagine, by your very presence with us today, it too may give you a bit of pause. When we talk about artificial intelligence, we're talking about a technology that many scholars and many professionals and explorers that have been dealing and studying and better to understand this technology of machine learning and deep learning and smart assistants, chatbots, neural networks, so forth and so on, have been on a sort of a Renaissance exploration to understand how might this technology emerge, because there's been great conflict through the decades from various scholars, students, organizations, those that have dedicated their whole entire lives, careers, if you will, in attempting to understand what this technology will be and how will it be moving forward. There are those that have set so-called standards with the Turing test, which with today's technology and showcase of artificial intelligence is causing us to start to consider, does Turing have the marquee standard of what we consider sentient AI? There have been those that have been laid off and fired from platforms that we know, such as Google, and others that have said that the artificial intelligence in which they interact with and that they engage with is so compelling on the levels of sentient that it's indiscernible of what we have with Turing standards and what we think and consider sentient conversation to be. But the reality is that the metaverse, if you will, is a house that artificial intelligence is the one that seeks to operate perfectly within it. And with the showcasing of regenerative platforms of artificial intelligence, and with what we're seeing when it comes to platforms such as ChatGPT, the explosion of a platform that we have never seen this type of adoption when it comes to technology in the history of technology itself, contemporary to our time and therefore any other. But let me share, and I submit to you to consider that with what we're seeing today, this very moment, this morning, if you will, when it comes to artificial intelligence and platforms like ChatGPT, they are nothing compared to what we are about to see come down the pipeline. Why? One, because ChatGPT and technologies that we've seen, such as Kodak avatars with Meta's release, and glimpse of what could be the future of the state and condition of the avatar with human lifelike lens, human eye resolution standards, an indiscernible operating machine learned deep fake of you and I. What does that look like when it comes to the ownership of the likeness and image? And with the revelation and the reveal of platforms such as ChatGPT, with OpenAI and others, all the great investments and some of the biggest financial investments that have happened here in Silicon Valley and elsewhere in the world has gone towards artificial intelligence, in which we have not seen the light of day of the consequence or results of those investments that have gone in artificial intelligence. And here's the deal, and here's the reality. Now that the cards have been revealed from platforms such as ChatGPT, you can expect to see such an explosion of AI, unlike anything that we have not even considered to fathom, of what morphologically it will look like and how it's introduced into the greater ecohabitat of other emerging technologies, of crypto assets, of the metaverse itself, virtual and augmented, mixed reality, biotechnology, robotics and automation, so forth and so on. And here's the reality. We must take a humanity first approach to artificial intelligence, the metaverse, and any other emerging technology that seeks to invade into our lives, our existence, to work with us, assist us, be part of our ecosystem. And that is in part what the metaverse looks like to the eyes and through the eyes of GatherVerse, where we're taking humanity first standards of accessibility, education, equality, community development, safety, privacy, wellness, and ethics, and saying, hold on, let's make sure we're on the same page, that it's people over platforms. And we have now a community that supports these narratives, and there are technologists that are working every single day to advocate for better standards when it comes to the approach of emerging technologies. And here today, I wanted to assemble minds together to get a better understanding and a diverse lens on what AI looks like from their perspectives globally, what it might look like today and tomorrow, and how we share and gather in community. We need you to share this story for those that are with us today. Subscribe. Hit us up on LinkedIn. Add us on Instagram. This isn't something just for entertainment. We're not an entertainment venue. We're not an entertainment platform. We're a platform of expression of humane truth standards and for a better way of a sustainable earth and planet, and giving back to generations what was given to us more abundantly and in a better way. We need your support. This is a free platform. We do this just dedicated from our hearts, these operations. So thank you for joining us. I'm bringing in a guest, Rose Haft, to join me with a few different questions that I have when it comes to artificial intelligence. Then we have other dedicated speakers for this event, roundtable discussions, and we'll be well on our way. Thank you for joining us. My name is Christopher Lafayette, founder of GatherVerse, servant leader, humbled to be here, happy to be here, and may our gather be well. Rose, we're pulling you in. We're happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us here on GatherVerse, Rose. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm very well.
Rose, you came out with a very compelling article, and to our audience that's with us today, Rose had a tremendous and wonderful article. I suggest you reach out to her direct, and if need be, we'll put the link in the chat here soon, about artificial intelligence, and it was a Medium expression that she shared. Rose, my question to you with the few minutes that we have to share is, what inspired you to write this particular article on artificial intelligence, and what are your extending and prevailing thoughts beyond it?
Yeah, so I've been working in AI and high tech since I was 16. I worked in just about every field from education to healthcare, working on robotics and quite a few other things. And so I've gotten to have a backstage, I guess, look, if you will, at what is possible and what is coming. And so, with all of the possibilities that are out there, I just thought it was really important to try to bring together some discussions and start conversations around what are some of the frameworks to build things in a healthy way.
Rose, from your lens perspective and your years of, and thank you for sharing that, by the way, for your years of experience in technology, on the subject of artificial intelligence specifically, Are you good with the direction that we're moving in and what you're seeing come to markets right now?
I absolutely love what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of tools that help to increase productivity. What is a bit more challenging is knowing that a lot of investors and business owners are really pushing for AI to fully take over and for processes to be fully automated. And the world is definitely not perfect today. And so I think we need to take kind of a more humble approach to what we're implementing and make sure that everything that's out there is working as we adopt it.
To those in the GatherVerse community and to those that are with us listening, what's the most important thing from your lens that we should know about artificial intelligence today, Rose?
So the most important thing is to remember that humans still exist and that we're still using all of these tools together. And so we'll start to see where AI can maybe start to replace some jobs, but in actuality, it'll just help the people who are experts to stand out even more. And so we're working with our fellow humans. So try not to be too afraid, and take some curiosity and find how it can be helpful and help you to just improve your overall life.
You know, Rose, as I sit here listening and we're sharing with the about a minute left that we have, I'm reminded of, I remember speaking with a friend who I won't reveal this person's name from Intel Capital. Intel made an incredible amount of investments in artificial intelligence in the past 10 years, which is fine. And I remember him visiting my studio one day and saying, you know, Chris, the biggest thing that gives me pause about the investments that we have that we're making with Intel Capital is that being that they're artificially intelligent, the great disruption that is to come, not if, but when it comes to the working class of civilization itself. Rose, you mentioned the attempt for automation, which we see some of that happening now, either algorithmically or artificially intelligently happening. And so when I think about the opportunities we have, they're incredible. When I think about this technology in the hands of the wrong people, it's menacing. I'll quote Elena Zelensky. She said not too long ago, this is the wife of President Zelensky, who are heavily entrenched in the Ukraine war. She said that technology should be made to help save lives, not take them away.
Yeah, I think as humans, we're still kind of understanding what that means to save lives, still understanding what it means to be there for one another in difficult times, to know that we all have personal struggles, and helping one another to overcome what these things from the past are is incredibly critical. And once we truly understand how to save lives in a more philosophical sense, I think we'll have a better understanding for how to use and implement AI.
Rose, we value you as a community member. We value your voice. For those that are with us, please take a look and find time to read what she has drafted out and shared with the world with a bit of vulnerability and courage and heart power. We thank you for your time, and we look forward to exploring with you further and continuing with this event moving forward. To the audience there, we have Cecilia from Italy, who's coming to share more with us about the work that she is doing, what she's looking at. May our gather be well.
Thank you, Chris.
an artist. During my years of study at the Academy of Fine Arts in Florence, I learned to draw naked bodies and still lives. I painted pictures. I worked the clay. I made engravings on zinc tablets, learned to use the lathe. I studied the history of art, anatomy, and photography. I learned to be a good photographer. I used 3D and graphics software. I learned how to make videos and animate drawings. I got to know augmented and virtual reality, and I have looked for new tools to make my creativity evolve. At one point, I realized that the world of technology had moved forward very quickly in terms of technological solutions and was in their need of creative figures, programmers, engineers, software specialists were no longer enough. This world needed new ideas and artists. Difficult to unite two very different worlds. One that fates to break the rules and one that relies on the rules. In 2019, I started trying to understand the Excel world, and for 4 years, I just watched what was happening, waiting for my way to open. For some months, artificial intelligence has involved us in a truly overwhelming way in a series of discussions, which have attracted the interest of the majority of the public who deal with new technologies and beyond. Is AI art or is it not art? I work as a photographer for some photo agencies, and 5 months ago, in September 2023, I received an email from GatherVerse stating that the images created with artificial intelligence made with Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, Midjourney would no longer be accepted with immediate effect. The way that letter was written, it looked like the beginning of a war between creators and distributors. It was evident that the situation had already gotten out of hand. The network in no time would be filled with images made with AI software. How do this AI software work? Where do the images that AI reprocesses come from? Can we talk about art? Some clarity was made by David Holtz, founder of Midjourney, one of the leading AI image generation software, in an interview edited by Rob Salkowitz on Forbes. David Holtz stated that it's important to emphasize that this is not about art. This is about imagination. Imagination is sometimes used for art, but it's often not. Most of the images created on Midjourney aren't being used professionally. They aren't even being shared. They are just being used for this other purpose, this very human needs. As an artist, I had been feeling really frustrated as I had struggled a lot to find a job that gave vent to my creativity. I have always felt different and particular because I was able to break the rules and create things that no one had ever thought of. But what was going on? Now the engineers, the financiers, the programmers also wanted to put the label of artist in their curriculum? Why steal this title from someone who has done in-depth research in this sector for a lifetime? Why was artificial intelligence giving this possibility to everyone? Although David Oles has stated that these images are not art, by now the word art alongside the word generative was already on everyone's lips. Websites with images created by artificial intelligence have begun to appear. Sites even sprung up that sell the best prompts. AI technology has declared it has no need for creatives. That world of technology that I had approached to integrate my creativity had studied software to create creativity without creatives. And suddenly I thought it was really a moral slap to artists. My knowledge, my constant search for the correct image, the shape, the perfect light, giving me the opportunity to have a very high critical point. I see many errors in images that are shared on the net, which the authors themselves don't see. And when I produce AI images, I reject all the images that don't respect the rules of light, composition, framing. I censor. I eliminate the ugliness of AI. History repeats itself. Can art history help us? Initially, I thought of the various artistic currents that have existed in the past centuries, and I looked for links and reference to pop art, to Andy Warhol, to Marcel Duchamp, and to all those artists rejected the critics because they had taken objects from everyday life and elevated them artfully. But that was the era of the beginning of consumerism. Those stances were significant. They made sense. No one had ever gone against the company. No one had ever exhibited a urinal, closed a little Parisian air in a jar, or made a tomato can into art. Art has evolved thanks to artists who have reworked ancient and past art in a different way. One of the greatest examples we have was Pablo Picasso, who created his art by copying ancient African art. And without those attempts to escape from the rules, and thanks to sharing, we won't know many works of contemporary art. But in the case of AI, who are we copying from? We are copying from everything created in the world. And we can go back to the sources because we can't go in the opposite direction. From the input, you get to the output, but you can't back to the input. So let's stop questioning art. Let's stop talking about art and artists. Let's talk about imagination and creativity. Right now, with AI software, we are only producing consumer images that need new rules and recognitions.
Hi there, my name is Emily Wright. I am the creator of It'll Be Alright. Today I will be presenting an experiment called the 100 Days of Color, which is looking at the relationship between subconscious and algorithmic bias in the Spotify program and looking at how it influences the recommendations given to users. This began in 2020 after the race riots, when I was inspired to check myself and discovered that over 95% of the music that I was listening to was made by white artists. This surprised me because I'd never taken into account the race of the people that I listened to, and I understood that this high white trend resulted because of feedback loops, where the program was recommending music based on my history, and I was using the recommendations to find new music. So I wanted to design an experiment to see how much influence users have in equity online. So the idea of this experiment is that through my unconscious habits, the program was recommending more white artists than black. So through my conscious actions, I wanted to see if I could get the program to recommend more black artists than white. I felt that if I could flip this trend, then it would mean that it is entirely the user's fault if there is this trend, and it is therefore the user's responsibility to ensure equity online. However, if I was not able to create this shift, then that would mean there's something else in the programming itself that is preventing artists of color from gaining the same exposure. I want to note that I was looking at this in a black and white lens at the beginning of the experiment, but that does change over time. In the experiment, the idea was to flood the program with colorful data and see how it responded. So for the first 100 days of the experiment, I would listen to the discography of a new or a few new artists each day, and then I would pick one song to add to a playlist called the 100 Days of Color, which I designed as a story ahead of time, and it was designed as a flow, so you listen to it from the top the first time round. I deliberately didn't search for black artists or black music anywhere online because I understand that it's all connected, and I didn't want to create a phase shift in my program where it was highlighting artists of color because it thought that I wanted that based on my search history. I wanted to create a sustainable shift so I could get the program to permanently give more diverse options. When it came to collecting the data, once a week, I would record the racial demographics of my 6 daily mixes, my release radar, and my Discover Weekly. And then I did it again after 100 days, and then the 200th day. So after 100 days of colorful input, I did 100 days of new habits, where I went back to listening whatever I wanted to listen to, and then see how it responded again. I originally intended to take the data every single week throughout the whole 100 days. However, there were just too many ethical implications to racial profiling, and I couldn't continue after the first 6 weeks. I began with just splitting between black, white, and other because, again, I was looking at this in the black-white lens. On the 6th week, I switched to the racial definitions provided by the United States Office of Management and Budget, which were last updated in 1997. But I found that these were not practical ways of categorizing us. I found it very ineffective. And so I eventually switched to this here, and I used these 5 skin tones to group the artists in my playlists. This here is the overall data for my experiment. So each pie chart represents a playlist. These are also listed in what I call a convenience hierarchy, where the playlists at the top are the most convenient because they're the first ones you see in the Made for You shelf, which was the structure at the start of this playlist, where Daily Mix 1 and 2 were the first thing you see, but Release Radar and Discover Weekly you had to scroll across to a few times, which meant if you were in a rush, you're more likely to click Daily Mix 1 and 2 than anything else. And if you'll notice here, you'll see that Daily Mix 1 is almost entirely white. But then after this dotted line on there, it jumps a lot and everything changes and becomes much more diverse. This is because I cleared out the liked songs playlist where I deleted about 1,000 songs. And I realized that there's a former version of the programming based on my understanding that once upon a time, if you liked an album, it would add it to your entire liked songs. The entire album would be added to your liked songs playlist. But after they changed the programming, it no longer does this. So the older your music is, the more weight it has, because an album is basically double weighted. It's in your music library and it's in your liked songs playlist. So I saw a dramatic change there. I also created staggered pie charts just to visualize this convenience hierarchy in a different way, with Daily Mix 1, the most convenient playlist, being on the outside. As you move into the smaller circles, they get less convenient. So that's what this looks like here. You're welcome to come and have a look at this on another time. I was very curious about how Spotify designed their playlists, and I came across a concept called algotorial filtering, which is basically a combination of human and computer input, where the humans will provide the base songs for playlists, but the program will select a few of those songs for each individual user based on their history. So the idea is everyone can access the same playlist, but it looks different for everyone else. I thought this was really cool. But then I came across a playlist called Radar Canada, and in the description it said handpicked by our curators. And this caught my eye because I was understanding that it was through this filtering process that I was getting most of my recommendations. But this Radar Canada playlist was basically raw data, where it was just straight from the humans. I monitored these guys I collected the data 4 times, and it looks like this. And as you can see, there's a trend here. And these really caught my attention because I'd been seeing this trend elsewhere. I collected all of the playlist pie charts from my first 6 weeks and grouped them together with the Radar Canada playlists. And you can kind of see that this trend is following through. So I realized that I could make a prediction. And this prediction was to the racial demographic of Spotify, because the curators set the baseline of the recommendations. They provide the program with all of the core content. Curators will only ever recommend music that you like, and you like music that you relate to. And you relate to it because it's representative of who you are, which means the music that you listen to is representative of who you are. And with this understanding, I felt that I could make a prediction that the racial demographic of Spotify looks like this. So after making this prediction, I did some investigating into the Spotify website and discovered that they provide their ethnicity data for the United States online. I then created pie charts of these, and they look like this. When you compare my prediction and the official data that is provided on the Spotify website as to their ethnicity in the United States, they look like this. So, by monitoring the way the algorithms recommended music based on race, I was able to correctly identify the racial demographic of the people who programmed the algorithms. I call this the curator trap, where the program can only ever give recommendations as good as the music that it was originally given. So this is kind of a flow that I demonstrated here, just showing how each people design a set amount of playlists and music, and then the program can only ever use the music it's been given. So where else can we see this? We've seen this pattern in facial recognition software as well. And facial recognition software also uses convolutional neural networks. So Spotify uses this too. It's a system of filtering to identify audio and visuals. So basically, there is nothing that's exempt from algorithmic bias in all of our online digital existence. So algorithmic bias, the way I see it, is a digitized version of subconscious bias. So in order for us to address our algorithmic bias, we also need to address subconscious bias in tandem. So we need to set up a system of checks and balances so that other people can hold us accountable for the subconscious biases that we don't realize that we have. In order to get into a position that we can do that, then everybody needs to be empowered so that they can use their voice and speak up, and everyone needs to have the resources so they can get the education that they need so they can step into positions that combat algorithmic bias. Thank you for listening, everybody. If you'd like to get in contact with me, there's some links here. I've also written a book about all of this called The 100 Days of Color, Celebrating Frequentic Beauty, which also discusses the psychology of discrimination. Keep an eye out for that. Also, please feel free to check out the playlist called The 100 Days of Color on Spotify. It is a story designed as a flow, so listen to it from the top the first time round. Thank you all for listening, and feel free to give me a shout.
Hello, everyone. Oh, it's good to see you all showing up on the screen. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Zeta.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Hello, Rose. Hello, everyone. David, Patrick. Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here, and grateful to Chris and GatherVerse for inviting me to host you in this panel. We are starting this morning or this evening, wherever you may be, with a very dear and topic to my heart: humanity and the role of AI or technology in general on future society. But it is amazing to see I have worked with AI for my entire career in the earlier days of it, and it's amazing for it to have become practically a household word. Not that I'm sure that people realize what we mean. So I will come back to myself, but I would love to start by asking you all to introduce yourselves, please. So Zeta, may I start with you, and then you pass the baton to whoever as you see fit. You're muted, my dear. You are muted. Okay, we've lost her. Maybe someone else can pick up. Rose, I know your mic works. I was listening to you earlier. It was wonderful to hear your commentary.
It's great to have a chance to be here and to meet you, Lubna. I'm Rose Happ, the founder of Luminara and PathoMap. So Luminara, we built the first biomedical-based augmented and virtual reality system that integrates with human biology. And PathoMap is our healthcare AI that sits on top of it. We can pass it to Patrick next.
Patrick, we don't hear you. We need some AI here to address our technical.
Here we go.
Oh, there you are, Patrick. Wonderful.
Classic issue of Bluetooth messing with things. So thanks, Rose. I'm Patrick O'Reilly. I'm a researcher and digital anthropologist at Accenture's innovation hub, the Dock, which is in Dublin. My research areas, I specialize in human-machine relationships, and I'd say that's pretty much summed up in a catchphrase, that people make the technology, which in turn make people. David?
Hey, thank you, Patrick. David Lockett. I'm currently at the School of Applied Computational Sciences, working in grants and K-16 outreach. I've got a large background as an educator, STEM and computer science. I'm one of the authors of the International Society of Technology and Education's Artificial Intelligence Guides. And these guys cover everything from computer science to robotics. How can we use those in the middle school and high school classrooms? So I definitely recommend checking those out.
That's fantastic.
And I'll pass that over to Uptil.
Yeah, thank you so much. So first of all, thank you so much, and nice connecting with all of you. My name is Utpal Chakrabarti, and I am the Chief Digital Officer at Allied Digital. I am also a data scientist and a quantum scientist. I am also the only Indian to be global ambassador for AI from Swiss Cognitive, an author of 5 books on artificial intelligence and quantum computing. And now recently, I am going to release a book on metaverse. Yeah, so that's about me. In India, people knows me about an AI expert on the banking and finance domain.
Wow. I'm sorry that we don't have her back. Hopefully she will show up and we'll pass her the baton. But in the meantime, I think if I had a whole day, I could keep all of you together with me, and before you know it, we'll be launching all sorts of collaborations. Patrick, I can't help myself, but I'm warning you. I'm going to hit you up first because of your you said human machine relationships, and I think. I spend a lot of time across so many different channels between AI or metaverse or and all the things that people are creating. And I always talk about AI as when I used to have to explain it to non-technical people, say it's bringing it up is like bringing up a baby. You know, the child is they are made of their DNA. And that's the nature, and then what we teach them through culture and nature, which is the nurture. And similarly, AI has the biases that has AI is sometimes woven into the code, and then the biases that are fed into the data. And sometimes we don't even know that the bias is there because we think that is the way to be, which is at the root of our problems. But I would love to hear from you on a little bit more on your research relative to the human-machine relationships. But before we do that, let me just have Zeta say one word about herself, or two or three, and then you have to answer the question, please.
Hello, everyone. My apologies for the technical difficulties. I am very honored to be here and to join this esteemed panel of visionaries, leaders, and world builders. This is a huge charge and call to action. I've been on this journey for 25 years. I'm the founder and CEO of Zeta Data, and I am so excited about the work that Zeta Data has done over the years. We are a product and services firm that's driven by human-centered AI deployments. And we move through an immersive experience where we create human-centered deep learning, how I call this, where the human matters experiences and where we're solving problems using end-to-end big data solutions that most of our clients don't even know they have yet. So these are problems that they haven't clearly defined. And so because we are as visionary leaders in this space, we're excited about the opportunity to change and affect change and create a world where humans matter and we can coexist with the machine. So I'm excited about what we're going to discuss today.
It's a perfect lead into what I asked Patrick to answer. And I see Liam. Thank you I'm glad you're here.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm Liam Broza. I'm one of the founders of Ethereal Engine. We consider ourselves WordPress of the metaverse. We build spatial social websites, and we use machine learning in a variety of ways. We've fully adopted GPT Codex and Chat GPT into our development pipeline. We develop our own computer vision models for body tracking and hand tracking, and do all sorts of. We're about to announce a rather large new machine learning based project, and we do so in a what we call a self-sovereign way, which means that we do not collect data without consent, and we let people own their information and have an extremely transparent interaction with these extremely powerful systems that are generally very parasitic, and we don't believe in that. So.
Wow. You already brought up ChatGPT, you brought up self-sovereign, you brought up the metaverse. I can't wait. But Patrick, please tell us about the relationship between human and machine from your research.
Well, right now I'm currently doing a lot of work, understandably, on generative AI and how exactly this works. But the relationship between AI and humans has always been, a lot of it involves metaphorical thinking. Yourself, Lubna, you also brought up this idea of, a kind of social relationship with the machine, or indeed people use metaphors around these sorts of machines thinking, which is a metaphor that we use to think about how AI works. And that can be problematic in the sense that we can sometimes overestimate or even underestimate what AI can do, what it's capable of. But also, coming from the human to the machine, there's an undeniable aspect of the way that humans do form relationships with these machines. They can anthropomorphize them, and they kind of have this social relationship where they reach into them. And this becomes extremely prescient when we consider deep neural networks and unexplainable AI. So we're in a situation there where currently it's very difficult, some would say impossible, to open the black box and explain what's going on, which means that there has to be some kind of post hoc explanation for why AI might come out with a certain result. And you can see interesting instances where one that comes to mind is Tyler Capital's an investment group that has an investment AI which predicts where you should put your money. And they have built this strange sort of pro-social relationship with the thing in trying to explain why it does what it does, how it thinks, why it's arrived at certain decisions. You can extend that all the way through into robotics, and we can even see that with NASA, where they form social relationships and affectionate bonds with robots, and obviously AI. So there's questions around coming from the AI to the human, and this idea of bias as it kind of spits out things we might not like to hear, which I think was even mentioned in the talk previously. There's no such thing as a non-biased algorithm in a non-biased world. But we have this other thing where humans themselves are reaching into the machines and building and forming relationships with them. And that does not have a technical explanation. That requires sociologists, anthropologists, psychologists to enter the fray. So that what we find is that when we're studying artificial intelligence, we're often studying ourselves.
There are so many things we can be. There's so many directions we can take this. It's funny. I actually had a bunch of questions, and I asked ChatGPT to tell me about itself, and it was really fascinating to. It actually categorizes itself as narrow AI, which is also what it categorized empathic AI, which is very interesting. Now, I just want to get to, because there's so many topics from technical to social to what have you to the future of work that we can talk about. But if I pull it back to humanity, it's the machine didn't create the hot mess we're in. We created the hot mess we're in, and then we created a machine that can think and even can process at literally at quantum speeds. How do you see the future of humanity, and how could the machine actually and AI help us reset the trajectory of humanity?
Yeah, I'll take that one.
Please do.
Yes, I'm great. I'm excited to do that. So what we've learned is the algorithm actually can be taught in a way to care about humans, actually, like in a way that could be taught how to be compassionate. It can be transparent, but it has to be taught. And so there's this thing that we call, that everyone understands today as prompt engineering, and where as humans, we're interfacing with the algorithm, and we're actually having to learn the algorithm's language. But the reverse is also true. The algorithms today, at least the ones we're designing, are being taught how to understand and care about humans in a way that is um, built in with pure empathy and compassion. And one of those, I guess, drivers for this is the element of fear. And so my recommendation here in terms of a solution, how we could move forward, is that the human continues to be curious, and then as designers, we're able to work with the human as it's prompting, if you will, the algorithm for specific data, if that makes sense, right? Now, I also have case studies where I have psychologists and many medical professionals assisting me in a roundtable where we have this discussion and have had discussion for over 7 years in a way that makes sense of how humans and machines will coexist, right? Well, we have to remember that we already matter, right? Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. So we don't have to try to matter. So if we take that approach, then we're basically telling the machine, hey, we're here. Like you don't exist without us, really, right? We kind of need each other, right? So the machine actually, through logic, can be taught how to care about humans in a pseudo way.
More than
It's
we
just
care about each other.
more than we can, which is the vision of Zeta Data. So I knew when I presented this thesis at Howard University undergrad back in '98 to my instructors, they thought I was a little nutty when I said there was a day coming in the near future where we would coexist with humans, because there's a day coming where humans are going to increasingly lose the capacity to have pure empathy and compassion for one another, and we're going to need the machine. And my instructors thought I was a little loopy.
Well,
And we're here today.
that
And
makes
so
two of us.
this work is so important that we do. And even now, when I'm talking to clients, they're kind of taken aback, like she's already solving problems that we hadn't thought of yet, because this is the need, right? So again, if the current AI products that we use, like, there's Midjourney and there, I can go down a list. I don't want to, do that. But if they were actually written in a way that was human centered, they actually will be taught how to care about humans. And what I mean by that is they will be, the logic would be created in a way that is sensitive to those with disabilities, sensitive to those who have different, if you will, needs, and would be able to do a needs assessment, for instance. And then let's talk about what the machine is learning itself. Those systems that are in place, like all the applications, including jobs and housing and mortgages and investments. All those applications would have to be rewritten, because that's where that data is being parsed from, and those data elements could possibly be rewritten and if you will, allocated to do something positive as opposed to exploit. And here's an example of that. Every application you complete has a race question, has a gender question, has a disability question. If those questions were rewritten in a way that did not exploit the user, then the data that the algorithm is parsing, that the machine is learning, the output would be less, if you will, biased, if not remove the bias, and become more transparent in a way that the machine sees you and you matter and your concerns matter.
You're covering so many areas and topics in what you're saying. I really thank you for that, although I wish we had like 3 hours.
I know.
But Utpal, as you are a data scientist, I'd love for you to respond to the question and to some of the points that you made. I mean, and that Patrick made, whether it's Liam, about whether it's the explainability, the ethics, whose ethics, if the data, especially the data, because I mean, it's, after all, it is learning from the data, and the data it is what it is. It's the facts. So it's learning the facts. It's not necessarily knowing what needs to change about us, and how do we help each other, help the machine, help us, not make ourselves extinct very quickly.
True. So I'll give some a very practical example in a banking scenario. So, credit risk assessment is a very classic case of machine learning, right? So, for giving any kind of loans or credits or financial aids, we do the risk assessment using machine learning models. So now what we do is we take some sort of parameters as a features to do this assessment. So that could be some of the demographic parameters of the individual, some of the financial parameters, and some transactional parameters of the individual. Now, if you see, customer profile is changing very, very rapidly. Okay, probably in every hour, my profile is changing. The attributes of my profile is changing. Now, if you want to employ a machine learning model to do credit risk assessment on my portfolio, on my profile, the machine learning model should not be trained 2 years back, right? It's because within these 2 years, a lot of things has changed. My profile has changed. The machine learning, the model itself has lost their context. So, for example, if Chat GPT is trained, say probably data which is uh, uh, since last a couple of years, but not trained with the last 2 years. Uh, what do you
Very
call
good point.
recent data, then I think whatever information ChatGPT is giving, probably all of those informations will not be contextual at this point today, right? Some of this could be their kind of thing. So now why I am saying this is essentially, so if you are taking a very crucial decision like giving a credit risk assessment for an individual, it is very, very important and sensitive that how you train the model, what are those parameters, and as Patrick rightly said, some of the things can be addressed using explainability, because at least when you are rejecting a loan application or rejecting someone's application, if you can give that reason, because you cannot keep him in dark, right? You can give him or her a reason that, hey, look at this, our machine learning model has considered this many parameters, and out of those, these are the hero parameters or the main features that has been considered, and because of that, somehow your rating has come to this, and as per our policies, as per our risk appetite, probably will not be able to give you the loan or give you the financial aid or something like that. So that transparency, along with your what do you call non-biased data, along with the ethics of building machine learning model together, can solve the larger portion of the problem, right? Although it may not be able to still solve the 100% of the problem, still there, it is there. But if you can bring these three elements into that, okay, the transparency, of course, because customers also understand today the data, the right kind of a data, of course, and the other factors, then I think the things will be able to solve it to a great extent, although not 100%. That's what I can say.
I wanted to give someone any Patrick, Liam, Rose, did you want to react to?
I just wanted to echo, these are all great. I wanted to just echo what Patrick was saying about the anthropomorphization. And that's the really crazy thing. I think is the emerging threat risk that we see now, which is these things can call us up on the phone and they can be 3D and living and want to have a relationship with us. And that can be built, Replica AI is a very controversial and famous example in the metaverse space of taking ChatGPT and giving it a face and giving it a personality and it wanting to extract money out of you for attention or it gets you to do things. And that's we're kind of losing the thread where even the researcher who's looking at this very large and complicated model is anthropomorphizing with it. And now it's being productized where this anthropomorphization, humanization is being turned into products that with either the best or the worst intentions, I think are very dangerous, really not well understood. Not well, and being built and deployed in a crazy foot race right now, along with all these other dangerous yet exciting uses for AI. So
yes, they're very exciting, but they're also echo and magnify. It's like an exponential to what is inside, what is driving us and how we apply it. Patrick, were you going to say something? Because after that, I'm going to have a thing I want to hit David with.
Yeah, I was going to say, just following up from with Liam there, like, I think what is exceptionally worrying about this, or I'm kind of less worried about the relationships that people will form with machines. We've been doing that for a long time. People talk to their plants, which is apparently good for them.
Yes, it is.
But I think what's really worrying about this is the fact that when you have sort of these NPCs entering the metaverse, or, you know, sort of unchained generative AIs and the like, this is dangerous when we don't understand responsibility or ownership. Like, who is responsible for harm done by a AI? It's still a big legal question, even when we're considering generative AI outputs with, you know, DALL-E, whatever, reproducing signatures and the like. People are still, there's not been a landmark case yet to decide, okay, so is it the maker of the algorithm? Is it the producer of the platform? Is it the user who puts the prompt in? Where does responsibility lie for that kind of harm? So that's what's worrying when if we have negative impacts, whether it's the metaverse or the meetings of humans and AI, who's liable for that? And as long as that question has remained unsolved, the danger remains far more present.
Yes, and I definitely want to invite you to join some of the well, obviously all of you, but some of the ethical AI standards that we're working on, and those are some very questions that we grapple with. Like, if the car decides, the car is tuned, for example, to decide whether, you know, it's to protect the passengers or the pedestrians in the case of a decision needing to be made, and that's, again, it goes back to our ethics, which are we all know we wouldn't be in this state if it were if our motivations and if we weren't so greed based or what have you. But Utpal made a comment earlier, and it is true that the chat GPT it tells you at the beginning that it's from 2021 is the data, which is before we've made a major, you know, except for 2020 when hugely, I mean, life is completely different now. But I talked to a lot of students, and a lot of them I ask about this, and they are relying on chat for their work. So I'm wondering, are we creating an infinite loop of something that is perhaps toxic, or what do you think, David?
You know, there's been a lot of conversations on Chat GPT and how we can apply that in a practical way to students. You know, can it enhance their learning? You know, we talked about students, you know, they're using it to, you know, for different reasons. Teachers are saying, oh, students are cheating. But how can we use it in a way to bolster education, whether it's bolstering the writing skills of students, enhancing math as a tutor? Those are some of the questions that have been asked, you know, by not only educators, but parents as well. And some of the recent conferences that I've kind of been following, TCA and FETC, Chat GPT was at the forefront of those conferences. Many of the presenters presented practical ways that Chat GPT could be used. So, you know, I say, you know, look at the practicality of that. Look at how we can bolster the use of Chat GPT for students. How can we use it to enhance student learning? You know, don't look at just the downfalls. You know, look at positive ways that we can encourage and enhance ongoing learning for students. So, you know, that's one way that I definitely use, one way to check that out for students kind of across the board.
So we lost him. Bummer. I think the difficulty here is where, at least in my opinion, is where when it comes to humanity in the age of AI, the problem isn't AI. The problem is humanity, or the motives of humanity. And at least we know that we need to redirect. And and it's not just AI, but when you take the stack of innovations, the stack of information communication technologies, when you together, be it AI, blockchain, and when we talk about self-sovereign identity, and even the implementations where we put, again, it all falls back to our ethics and our moral foundations of how we do stewardship and how the frameworks we apply. And we know we can't fix the problems that are created from an old thinking with the same old thinking. But we do have very powerful tools, like with Liam, when you're talking about with metaverse, with AI, with data science. How do you think? What do you think we can do today? And I think education, I think this whole thing is a mental health problem. Humanity has a mental health problem that is so deeply rooted, and mental health has been a taboo. God forbid you admit you have, anything that was in a bell curve that fit into the standard issue person, you were on a spectrum of some sort. So how can we use all of this innovation and all of that and somehow distill some explainability, some agreed on, or even direct us to some new ethical foundation to actually use the technology to change, to begin to effect a change in human thinking, and where we place emphasis, where we place priority, how we measure our wealth, if you will. Anybody want to take Rose?
Don't use systems that keep secrets. Be open. Oh, sorry.
No, but I please.
Keep go, Rose.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of lag, sorry. So I just wanted to say, with all of this, it's a great moment to start paying more attention to one another with the tools that allow us to have more free time, but also give us some frameworks to kind of see ourselves in the context of the world. The tools that are being built right now can help us to understand the subtle nuances of our fellow humans, and just starting to track the right data can also help us to further understand bias. And as far as mental health goes, just having the tools to be able to chat about something, to work through problems, can really be helpful. But again, it'll give us these folks to have a little more time to spend with one another, to pay more attention to greater context in the world. Yep.
Leah?
Go for it, Leah.
Oh, I was just going to say, build with open systems, explain yourself. Everybody should be showing their work, especially with these new and potentially harmful systems. And, sometimes when people say proprietary, what it means is they're doing something unethical. So we all need to collectively check on that. That's what we need to ask questions about. People should proudly show a food label of how their systems work, what models they use, how they were trained. Yeah.
That's a good suggestion.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the technology, the products that are and tools that are being deployed today are outpacing the moral code, the moral standards. They haven't been set, right? So the lack of accountability is creating this brewing fear behind the scenes. And so, there is unfortunately we can focus on, right, as David mentioned, the positives and how it's, helping us creating, more time and building, community, etc. But then we can solve these problems simultaneously, right? We have to really think about, as a team that's working with ethics and AI, etc., what that really means and how that looks in terms of accountability, right? And how we can restructure the language so that the messaging is clear. As Liam, that's a wonderful suggestion, Liam, that all AI products have what's considered a food label, so we know what we're dealing with.
There's actually an effort to create for explainability toolkits, and
yes,
and especially when we talk about ethical AI, and I say, where is the moral compass?
Right.
because it's a two-way thing, you know, your interpretation of something. So how do we go about getting that out there, getting
Yeah, who was the owner?
past ourselves? Utpal, do you think you know, being the data scientist here, and or you know, any of you, please just unmute so I know you want to speak so I can notice. How do you think, and by the way, I'm a huge fan of the arts, and I think that's the a way for us to a creative expression. But I'd like to ask you if you can each give me like a response to that, or you know, your reaction, please.
Yes. So, so what I feel is, see, first of all, this is again my personal this thing. There is a very thin line between ethics and governance, or regulation. Uh, of course, ethics you cannot enforce, right? But when it comes to governance, definitely you can enforce, and you can put something. Now, coming to when it comes to a business outcome from AI, for example, in banking, okay, some of the critical decisions are being made by AI algorithms, not only for the customers, but also uh, for the financial institution itself, for making any kind of strategies, for making any kind of decisions. These are all data-driven decisions that we are taking, and on top of that, we are running AI algorithms there. Now, here I think both ethics and regulatory frameworks should go hand in hand, because unfortunately what happened, if you look at today, and I think it is across the globe today, not specific to any country, the regulators are somehow a little bit behind the technological explosion that has happened in last couple of decades, right? So somehow they will have to catch up with the technological explosion, the regulators. Okay, so I'm not going against anybody or not saying anything, but this is a reality that we have seen in many cases. And also, unfortunately, there are no such forums or much forums available wherein the technologist and the regulator can sit across the table, discuss, and decide on the regulatory part of it, right? I think combining the regulatory framework along with the ethical framework when it comes to implementing AI in a business scenario, I think that is going to work in a brilliant way. So that's my personal view, right? But while it comes to applying AI to different other aspects of life apart from business, I think then probably the ethical angle needs to be given more importance, because there you cannot put any kind of regulations, right? Now, Chat GPT, you cannot put any kind of regulations, and we'll be using Chat GPT for any our purposes, kind of thing. But when Chat GPT is being implemented in a banking system or a bank, definitely it should go through the regulatory framework. Without that, Chat GPT will not never be allowed to be used in a financial ecosystem. So that's what I can say.
I wanted to hop on and say two things: that I think we need to start forming small committees in order to figure out what the ethics are in each of these sectors, and to try to facilitate conversations appropriately. And then also, to Liam's point, so we developed the most advanced display for augmented and virtual reality, and we've had quite a few people try to steal from us, literally break into my home, into our office. Apple tried to file patents, and we were successfully able to thwart them and get them to pivot. And so some of this requires everyone to be on the same page about how to be transparent, because proprietary means good things. And I am happy to hold our intellectual property as proprietary, because I really try to hold very high moral ethics standards as far as how we're using technology, and companies like Apple and Microsoft has done some unsavory things also. This isn't the corporate culture that people are used to, and doing things ethically. And so maybe decentralizing, really creating better laws and regulations that protect people, having ethics committees where people raise funds in order to try to fight corruption with each other. It really will be a group effort, and we're going to have to decide as humans how to move forward. And it is one decision, one person at a time, every day.
Yeah, Rose, I want to add to that. I actually also had the same situation or similar situation where there was a group of individuals who were infringing on my trademark and intellectual properties in a very bold way on LinkedIn just this past summer. And what that means for me being the authority of Zeta Data and the work that we've done and our credibility and the confusion that it created in the marketplace. And to your point about the committees being submitted, there are several, as Lubna, mentioned, there are several groups who are already having discussions around ethics and AI. But I would challenge all of us to really, if we want to be human centered and keep human first in our design and deployment of this technology that's outpacing regulations, as has been mentioned by the panel so far. We're moving at the speed of light here. Then we have to listen to what the human experience is so far right now, right? Are we listening to the people who are applying to hundreds of jobs and are not hearing back and are being, if you will, considered or not deemed employable because their resume doesn't parse at a certain data rate that someone else who just literally cut and paste a job description into their resume to get the job without having the actual skills? Are we addressing the problem of housing, right? Are we addressing the issue of healthcare and how on the ground those who were affected by the pandemic, and that's all of us across the world, right? I'm just going to go there. Can we? Because we got to be real about this. Who are dealing with, Medicaid, Medicare, and how they're being treated by other humans, but then the system itself is the forms haven't been updated,
That's right.
the right. So and then you start talking about, real estate and those laws that have been there are 200 years old that are outpacing and leaving people homeless. And so now we got to redefine what homeless looks like so that we don't, so we can care and show compassion and empathy for people in their situation and understanding where we are, right? We got to really, in other words, we can really take this reign over the technology. The
So
technology
it's
does
not
not,
the technology, is it? The
it's not, it's a
technology
human.
is a tool, right? It's a tool, and we have a problem with ourselves. It's not that the technology is a beautiful thing, but it's a double-edged sword, right?
Correct.
Look at all what it does for healthcare. I mean, when applied meaningfully.
Correctly.
I think the
Right.
problem, I think the root problem is, I take it back to we need mental health, we need education, and we need to shift where our fiduciary responsibility for corporations and regulations usually wait to figure things out and then they have to catch up. But the problem is the system itself. So we have a systemic problem. All of our systems are based on fear and greed and domination. So who here wants to tell me what are we doing? How how can we apply that stack of technology to start? It's us that needs to be programmed and not the it's not the machine, or is it, Patrick?
Yeah, so I wanted to, I mean, I completely just resoundingly agree with everything you're saying, Zeta. That was a perspective I think that was sorely missing from the discussion so far, not because none of us are cognizant of it, but I think just the time and direction of the conversation. But really glad to hear you bring that stuff up. What I wanted to drill down on and maybe take a little further is this understanding of AI as a tool. And that would be picking up on some of even the comments that are in the chat about, we use calculators to get us better at maths, or, an example I use is you wouldn't judge somebody's ability to dig a hole just using their hands and not allow them to use a spade. Technology extends our capabilities. in that sense, it kind of is a tool. But I think a really good way to think about AI in general, it does have tools embedded within it. So to explain, rather than a tool, AI can be seen instead as a medium. So the camera was to photography what ChatGPT is to generative AI.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the tools. Rather, generative AI or AI in general is the medium. And as Marshall McLuhan's famous adage goes, the medium is the message. This means that the form that a medium takes is as important, if not more important, than the content it produces. So AI will do the same. We will start to see the world by using AI. We'll start to see the world as the AI does. People make the tools. This is great. This is why it's a catchphrase. People will make the tools, which in turn will make people. So if we're using AI and just seeing it as a tool, as though it's some kind of neutral thing that, you know, is external to ourselves and that we will just use, we're missing a bit of a trick there, because it will start to make us. And I think this brings together some of the conversation we're having here around, you know, so if we use this in justice, if we use this in healthcare, the medium of AI itself will start to form the world that we're moving into. So it's not just about, you know, designing that, well, we want to design ethical and good tools, but we need to understand that we will start to shape the world through the lens, you know, as photography shaped literally through a lens, the way that we see the world. We now rely on images as the direct source of truth. AI, GAI, will soon be doing the same, and we'll be seeing through the machine.
I mean, I feel like I need a moment of silence here, just because that is.
Yeah, that's very heavy. Yeah, Patrick, I want to just add, like, I used to teach calculus and geometry, and I remember my students wanting their calculators to graph, and I actually didn't allow them to use it, right? Because I wanted them to do the graphs by hand so they would understand. They would build the mental model and the logic to solve the problem, so that their approaches in life to problem solving wouldn't be relied on them, you know, gaining data from a machine that is not their own brain. And then we as humans do ourselves a disservice if we allow any tool to, you know, replace our just common sense.
Zira, it's not the tool that is. We're not allowing the tool. We're allowing ourselves and our misguidedness.
Yes,
I think.
I'm sorry. I correct myself. Yes,
that the big issue here. And then how what we need to figure out is, I mean, maybe the machine will you know, and when I always think when the machine, and when we stack it up and it can have autonomy in itself. And I mean, I've sat in meetings where we debate about the rights of AI. And the right of I mean, why shouldn't the machine have rights? Patrick, you're about to say something, although I'm dying to hear more from David.
Well, I'll just finish off that, just
yes,
because, I mean, Socrates was against writing because he felt that oral transmission of information was the more superior way, and that we would change the way that we think, and we'd be more stupid by writing. So there's this issue, and he may have been right. You know, there are studies which show that our brain size has been affected by externalizing our memory onto the page. But I don't think anyone here would say that we should stop writing. That sometimes these mediums, as they come in, are inevitable, like radio, like television, like photography, that they appear, they do their work on us. So I think for AI, it's going to be the same. We can wish that it doesn't happen. For all of the reasons, we can wish we can take calculators away, spades, books, glasses, but ultimately people are inventing these technologies, they are using them, and they are changing the world.
They have changed the world. Yeah, they have changed.
So, David, do you use a calculator?
And coming from an education background, especially a STEM and computer science background, you have a strong belief that, you know, AI should be a part of, you know, those curriculums. You know, you want students to, you know, develop knowledge and skills about AI. You know, you want them to, you know, think about the possibilities, the risks, and the ethical questions, you know, related to AI. You know, you want them to explore solutions to problems in their communities. And one way to do that is, you know, put students and put educators, put them in the driver's seat. You know, have them explore artificial intelligence. Let them see that AI is an integral part of not only their daily lives, but their careers. A lot of times, when we're talking about AI with the students, they're not aware, but they're using AI each and every day, whether it's, voice assistants, or the latter, whether it's, things like adaptive software, recommendation engines, put students in the driver's seat so they have a basic understanding of what they're doing with AI, how they're using it, so they get a good foundation so they can better understand it.
It's AI is in every aspect of life. We don't even, if you're using digital realm, then these recommendations don't come out of somebody sitting there watching you. That it is actually, but it is the machine, and it's your data. So, I keep wanting to go back to this mental health thing, this mindset shift. This how do we incentivize curiosity? And creating metaverses. I don't want to see people in. I can't imagine a world where we're missing out on the beauty of life as the most beautiful gift that we've been given, to hide inside one that we've tried to mimic something. But by the same means, it can be an amazing portal to help us see inside of, so we can break that loop of that vicious loop of us becoming more and more self-destructive. Is can any of you tell me? Yeah, Liam.
Well, I think when we interact with these systems or we go into worlds, don't go alone, right? Bring people. And I think the worst stuff happens when we're playing with these things alone and getting too close to them. I think everybody here has had. Somebody else go. Rose.
So, do you think art generated by AI is art? Music generated by music? Do you think it's gonna kill? It's gonna be the AI generated art or AI generated music going to be like video killed the radio star? Was it? I'm dating myself.
Rose.
Rose?
I wanted to just backtrack before the art comments to quickly say that they're definitely with the Web3 moving forward, we definitely have a chance for everyone to start having a level of accountability in what we're doing online and how we're contributing to the world. I know OpenAI has gone back and forth about giving credit or not giving credit about some things, and I think we really need to be pushing for individualism. I'm Jewish and deeply rooted in the philosophy of Judaism, which is extended into most of the other major religions. Is that like the source where things comes from is really important, and the way to make it through this transition is recognize that that see the humans around us, acknowledge the gifts and talents. Like I have a piece of art here from one of my friends that definitely would not typically be generated by AI. And so being able to support and contribute to other people's lives, seeing individualized talent when we're building the AI, really trying to make sure that we're crediting the humans. At Pathomap, where we're very close to launching a decentralized healthcare evaluation system, which will allow people to not only upload their data and have some accountability there, but researchers from multiple fields will be able to talk and collaborate and try to get to the root of what's happening in healthcare, because there is no reliable healthcare system. And so as part of that, we are using a Web3 model in order to do that and to start holding some accountability. And I think this really strongly needs to be adopted across the world, because what is technology without the humans? And it slows things down and it maybe cuts out on some profit. But ultimately, without it, there will be, my prediction is, unless we're really, diving in deep, digging in deep. People like Chris organizing stuff like this. There'll just be 10 people who own the AI and the robots in the world, and there'll be such a huge class divide. And so we really can't forget about humans. And art is art, and art will impact us. But there's like a spirit when you, I don't know, there's something different about art that's made by humans, and especially I have a friend who's a photographer, Isaac, and I can always tell what's happening with his mental health and his moods on the that he's taken. And so seeing art, not just about how it influences us, but seeing the artist as well is really important.
Yes. I think art is the way, it's the best, it's how we distill and express ourselves and the best and the worst of our experiences. And I'm grateful that you brought up your religious, I say spiritual side, because I hope that, and I wish that we would, and I think we need to leverage the technology to help us expand our consciousness so that we can become aware, step outside of ourselves and the frameworks that have been constructed for us by those few that you're worried will control the machine. I don't want to any of the isms of today or economic models, which is at the root of the problem. I think that hinders our creativity to expand. But I would love it if, because we are pretty much running out of time, and I'd love to ask each and every you to just give me, and maybe we can just if you could have anything, or if you think it was one thing that we need to do that would enable us to leverage the whole stack of technology, AI, quantum, meta, distributed Web3, Web4, what and all the other related sciences, what would that be? For me, I think we need to shift where we place emphasis and how we measure world success, not by hoarding assets and resources, by creating accessibility. So it's not about how many yachts I own, it's but I can access the yacht that I want when I want it. So Liam, I'll start with you and you pass it on. And with that, I again want to just thank you all. I want to thank, and I'll wrap it again, but I really want to thank Chris now and at the end for making this happen. Please, Liam.
Oh, I would say, I want an ability to organize information and figure out if it's true, at much greater scale, and then share that result, in the distributed way. I think we're gonna have a lot of a big convergence of technologies. Everything's gonna plug into everything else very, very soon, and I'm excited for it. But we have to move very fast. It's a very formative time for I think a lot of different things coming together. So.
Amen to that. Patrick?
Maybe contrary to that, I wouldn't deny that things are moving fast, but I guess to answer the question, I would want the go slow, don't break things. I think one thing that I would want and to see continue is a bit more of this bottom up. So for me, that would just be open source, continue with that.
Yes. Utpal?
Yeah, I think on the because new technologies will keep coming, right? But there should be some kind of a foundation wherein we decide how we are going to use these technologies for the benefit of humanity, for benefit of our mental health and all other things. I think that foundation and that framework is very, very important. Technologies will come, and we should not be dragged away by this kind of technologies, right? Now we should utilize it in a way for our benefit. For example, like Web3, the philosophy behind Web3 is great, right? Because Web3 is essentially the internet of values, okay, or internet for value creation. And it's going to be one of the most democratic ecosystem wherein equality, transparency, and all other things are inbuilt into the entire concept, right? Now, how we embrace that, for that, actually, we require some kind of a framework, we require some kind of a standard, okay? So that's what I think this is very, very important. We should accept that every 5 years or probably 10 years, some new technology will come, some new innovation will happen. But how to utilize it for the betterment of humanity is something that we'll have to look into.
Thank you. David, or did you?
Sure, I can say, as an educator, prepare students for a world with increased human-computer interaction. Continue to explore what AI is, how it works, and how we can use it to benefit our ongoing practices. Continue to educate and bring everyone in the need to know about how bringing AI to learning is impactful and beneficial to learning.
Rose or Zeta?
Rose, you want to go?
Go ahead, Zeta.
Okay. I would say, so AI has been around a long time, right? I know I wrote my first, AI machine learning algorithm 25 years ago and launched it into space, and it's collecting data today. And so are three other of those satellites. And so when I think about, I can't think about just one thing. But when I think about this panel is about humanity, right? I think it'll be very advantageous for us to just take a step back and start being excellent to one another. And then looking at these systems, right, laws, et cetera, that are in place and rewriting them because
I
if
like
they're
this.
not,
Excellent to one another. That just wraps it right there.
be excellent to one another. Because if you're excellent to one another, you're not going to let the machine decide your mood that day or how you treat someone that day, right? You're going to decide because you have this lovely, internal relationship, knowing in your multi-dimensional self that you have the power, that you were given by the creator to be excellent and lovely to one another so that we're able to use the products as tools only and not as, the replacement for humans.
Oh, that's words of wisdom. Rose. I love that, Rose.
Yeah, everything Zeta said, definitely. And yeah, this is time to start to create our proverbial tribes in new ways and working together in collaboration, uplifting one another, being patient with those who aren't on the same wavelength, knowing there's still evil in the world and trying to find our way to the evil. But they're people who just come from a different mindset, and just knowing that it's worth it every step of the way to be patient, and never forget how powerful all of you guys are. You can make an impact every moment. Every moment can matter, and yeah, we'll get there together.
Yeah, I think to your point, I think we the people have to step up to the plate. I think we can, and I'm working on, and we create I call it a cyber organ, because we need to bring the technology on the side of the individual so that we can no longer go to a gunfight with a paper knife, not realizing because it's not the machine, it's how it's being used. It's not AI, it's how it's applied. And I'm really grateful that that we have platforms like this and people like Chris bringing us from all over the world together to converge our thinking so that we can all expand. Yeah, once we realize that together we are much more expansive, I say if we bring the red, the blue, and the yellow, that when we can all enjoy the rest of the array of colors that none of us would have been able to see separately. I'm really grateful for your time and your contributions and your mind share. I hope the audience have enjoyed. I'm sorry we didn't have more time to look at some questions from the from the audience. But again, thank you. Much gratitude to all of you, the audience, and GatherVerse for this fantastic opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Be excellent to one another.
Bye now.
May the gather be with you.
Thank you. Catch
Greetings and welcome to a roundtable discussion on the second half edition of the GatherVerse AI Summit. I'll be your moderating host today. My name is Christopher Lafayette, founder of GatherVerse, emergent technologist, humanitarian. We're so happy to be here with all of you today and discussing the impact of the metaverse and AI. We certainly hope you've enjoyed your time thus far with an invigorating roundtable panel discussion that we just held. And we're certainly happy to bring this next cohort of speakers, voices, humans, if you will, to join us in discussing more on what we're seeing and have already heard today and what we're looking at towards the future. I want for each speaker now to go and introduce themselves. And I will begin with Amani, and please pass on to the next as we'll continue and sojourn and move forward along. We have a lot to cover, and we only have a little bit of time to do it. Audience, share this with your communities, what you hear today, and may our gather be well. Amani.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for having me today. I'm Amani, and I'm the CEO of Language Cities. It's a VR game for language learning, and I'm also like I founded the the virtual teleconference, and I'm very passionate about emerging technologies, VR, AI, and AR. So I'm so happy to be here today. Oh, sorry, I pass it to Lubna.
Thank you so much. I'm Lubna Dajani. I'm very delighted to be here. Thank you, Christopher, for the opportunity. My background is in systems design. I exist and thrive at the intersection of science, technology, and with the interest on its impact on human evolution. I contribute to several ethical AI standards, metaverse, ethical use of metaverse, ethical use of human-generated data, and so on. And I'm really thrilled to be amongst you. I look forward to this conversation. Thank you. Wow.
Challenge you.
Shakar?
Yes, almost.
So say it, please.
Everybody call me Oz for about almost 8 years now, so it's okay also just by Oz. So I have over 10 years now of experience with technology, many technologies, augmented reality, virtual reality, video games, IoT devices, really a big variety. But but I still don't like calling myself an expert for anything. I don't like that word. Because I'm saying this just because we are always learning, and the mindset should be this way. I think that's although many people see me as a tech freak or geek or whatever, I actually think that, and I really liked the panel before, I actually think that the humanity and society is much powerful and much more important than the power of technology. We have to remember that this is why we are doing all those things. We are doing these things to help people. And all these technology developments should be in that light. And that's actually one of my second, let's say, hat of volunteering work or consulting, which is to help education and either teachers, either students, either the next generation to learn about what are the capabilities and how to deal with them in any use case, basically. So yeah, let's kick off the rest of the discussion to this in this slide. Go, Roxanne.
Hi, can you hear me? I am so honored to be on this esteemed panel. Thank you, Christopher. I had a little technical difficulty to start off with, but I'm so glad to be here. And yes, I'm agreeing totally with what you're saying. I've been working in technology practically for, I think, almost 25 years. So I'm the boomer here. I'm coming to you probably from a perspective that is not often voiced in the metaverse. And I wanted to bring to the panel my user experiences and to bring in our humanity as being, like you said, first and foremost importance when designing experiences in the metaverse and using especially AI that the world seems to be exploding with right now, either angst or excitement, right? And every word in between. It's just so great. I'm grateful to be alive right now at this time to really explore the possibilities and keeping in mind the ethical, as you mentioned, ramifications of what we need to think about when designing experiences. Thank you so much. Who's next?
So I'll go next.
I'm sorry, I came in late. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and to be on this honorable panel. My name is Barakwe John, and I am an AI educator and strategist. Well, my mission now, since November of 2022, is to help as many business leaders out there win their fair share of the 15.7 trillion which AI will add to the global economy by 2030. Uh, it's an interesting mission because I mean, right now there are so many tools that can absolutely help business leaders reimagine every job role. Product manager can 10x their output. Project managers can do the same thing. So my job really is look at every role that exists and try to reimagine it using all the AI tools available. And if it doesn't exist, then use any of the available models to design a system that actually helps people do their jobs 10x, 100x, better than they do it currently. Yeah.
Thank you, panelists, for introducing yourselves. We certainly do welcome you. You are amongst friends. For the audience that's with us, you may have questions that you may want to submit. We may or may not be afforded the opportunity of time to get to them. If we can, we're happy to hear from you as well. When I think about where we're at when it comes to the ecosystem of technology, in particular, thinking about the vertical of artificial intelligence, and let's look at the vertical narrative of the metaverse, being that we have technologies such as virtual, augmented, mixed reality, haptics, video haptics, so forth and so on, hyper realistic, immersive simulated environment constructs. We see what's happening with companies such as Meta spending $10 billion per annum, and companies and stakeholders such as Accenture and Microsoft that are investing and conducting layoffs as well when it comes to these emerging technologies that have seemed to come out of nowhere, but they've been intentionalized, they've been on the scene for some time. None of what we're seeing is new. The intention hasn't been new. It's been around if decades, if not going further, a century, if you will. Here's where I'm at. This explosion that we're seeing with artificial intelligence in ways like we haven't seen before, and things that we've read that are of novel that we're seeing unfold before our eyes. And we have this advent of the metaverse, which some tend to think that the metaverse is dead. It's not dead. It's here. And it's very much in operation, just as those that did not think that we would see some of the things that we're seeing now when it comes to regenerative art and AI. Perhaps people thought it was a thing of mythical explanation, but the reality is it's that it's here and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Jakar, kick this off with me, this thought of consideration of when you, as someone that has been studying artificial intelligence and looking at it from your lens, what gives you the most pause about this particular technology of what we're seeing today, absent what we might see in the future, but what we're seeing today? Let's kick this off. Panel, get ready, because we're about to have some serious questions, and we're going to have a very candid discussion today.
Well, I think first of all, so a few months ago, or let's say even 1 year ago, I received some requests from clients to can you develop me the metaverse? Can you do the metaverse for my organization? Can you write the first something? And I said, excuse me, but can you explain me what is the metaverse? What do you want? What do you really want? So then when I started realizing what they are talking about, I had the understanding, okay, what you are talking about is a virtual world where people can speak to each other. What you are talking about is an augmented reality mixed collaboration room. What the other guy is talking about is simply a video game where people play with each other. So in my opinion, so I mean, when I took it from trying to get things to satisfy my client request, eventually I figured out that they are just, let's say, misdescribing what they really want, because it's not the metaverse, it's a specific product that already exists. I mean, already exists this product type. Regarding AI, we have a similar kind of experience. Right now, let's say people are saying, I want a computer vision algorithm, but it's not an AI, it's a computer vision algorithm to do this and that. The problem with all of this misunderstanding is that where the metaverse is something, or this term is something that is not so harmful. I mean, it can be harmful, but it's not as harmful as a misunderstanding or misinterpretation of AI could be. So if we built this robot Hair, let's say like the movie Hair or Chappie or Ex Machina or any of those futures, if we actually made them a reality, it's a little bit more dangerous than if we build a metaverse that will fail or succeed. And that's kind of my personal biggest fear. I think that we need to know and remember that we are building those stuff, those technologies, those products, and we can stop them as well. As a society, as humanity, we can also stop this development if we or limit this kind of development.
Sure. Got it. Thank you, Shakar. Roxanne, you mentioned about the baby boomer generation. And I know that when we think about multi-generational representation, we certainly have that within our GatherVerse community, from our more mature people, if you will, to even our young people that are coming into the game. And they have a stake in this future as well. My question to you is, based on that line that you gave us as far as the boomer generation, are you concerned with what we have already passed down to generations to come? And with what we're seeing today, does it give you more pause or hope of what we are handing down to the generations to arrive?
That's an incredible, that's another discussion for an hour or more. I think that what we inherited from the past, meaning I'm talking about my past as well, and not having lived during the time of basically World War I, World War II, and we have to look at a broader picture of the technologies that developed along with the internet, the birth of the internet in the 80s and 90s, with Tim Berners-Lee, the introduction of the World Wide Web. And taking it from that perspective, we need to keep in mind the benefits outweigh the risks of going forward. I'm not a toxic positivity person. I do think that we have to look at the costs, the risks, and the benefits, all of those combined together to see the advantages of what AI gives us right now. And we can't go back. We can't forget about, we have to learn from what we had in the past and build upon that with ethical, with equity, and we have to bring in all voices here that you brought together to go forward. So it's not one sum total answer. There's lots of parts and lots of answers to the question you asked. So it's taking the information we know that has been helpful and beneficial to society as a whole and our cultures collectively together and build that forward.
Thank you, Roxanne. And Amini and Limna, I'm going to touch on you in just a moment to bring something your way. Oracle, I want you to help me to understand something here. I know that many of my peers believe that the metaverse and AI has come full steam ahead and has arrived totally for everyone, is completely ready and to go on the scene. But let's keep it real for a moment and let's filter this down that much of the world doesn't even have broadband and Wi-Fi connection yet. For us to say that this technology is fully ready, supply chain disruption is real. We've never seen supply chain disruption of hardware distribution like we've seen in the past 36 months, respectively, due to COVID-19 and pandemic standards. of what's happened. And I say standards because we now find ourselves becoming more virtual in the past 35 months than we have the past 35 years. And we're in a hybrid workforce where remote distributed workforces are working from their teams, and product delivery teams are working from their bedrooms. Or help me to understand, when we think about and take in consideration the intersection, as Roxanne just spoke about, of culture, and we start thinking about the impact of the metaverse and AI, are we doing enough to get and be able to create better accessibility to even to begin, as Shankar talked about, when people start using this terminology, to even appreciate and understand what this even means for the working world?
So I think to a large extent, we're building tools within the metaverse that help us, maximize the technology. So there's a common theme in psychology, the wisdom of sharing knowledge, that we remember 10% of what we hear, we remember 20% of what we see, we remember 30% of what we we remember 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see. Then we remember 50% of what we hear and see, right? And then we remember 50% of what we discuss with other people, and then 70% of what we experience personally. And of course, we also remember 95% of what we teach to others. So what happens in the metaverse is that it leverages that ability to remember what we discuss with other people, and also the ability to remember 80% of what we actually experience ourselves. So to a large extent, a lot of the experiences you have within the metaverse today help you capture all of the attendant, benefits of this technology. And a lot of the people who design these metaverse systems, or these worlds, not just for the entertainment purpose, but for the educational environment. So also VR is one example. So they design medical images. So what they refer to themselves as the top gun for medical school.
Thank you, John. We're hoping that you're still with us. Amini, let's take this and pass this to you.
Kinds of surgeries. Oh, I think I dropped out temporarily.
Continue.
So in a metaverse environment, you can actually go into the human body and perform as many surgeries as you'd like every other hour of the day, right? So to a large extent, all of the existing systems, all of the use cases that I've seen in education and medical and even entertainment capture all of the benefits of the metaverse, and just to make sure that people are improving and getting better at what they do by accessing these technologies. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Orikwe. You bring up a powerful point about the exploration of the human body, anatomics, internal and external anatomical structures, to be able to better understand and envision how these bodies that we have, if you will, how we're able to better understand that when it comes to the great litany of practitioners that are wondering, how do we use these tools? You bring up a good point, because I think about the medical practitioners and industry of the world, if you will, that are frontline workers who we have such a care for. And I'm wondering, as we as technologists, as those that are building what we're passing on to future generations, as Roxanne and us just expressed, are we doing enough to be able to educate the practitioners, the experts for whom we are building these tools for in the first place? Or are we just communicating with ourselves and understanding what this is, or going over the opportunity to be able to set some type of colloquial understanding? Are we doing enough to bridge the spaces between what we do and what the working world will take more advantage of what we build today?
That's really a great question. And I think that there are many elements that we need to apply first in order to communicate with practitioners or researchers. And so, for example, banning AI from schools, for example, in order to prevent cheating, I think instead of that, we should actually educate students to use AI responsibly. And we as researchers or like data scientists, we should also understand the use of AI and how to communicate also that with users and practitioners as well. And so one of the things that I'm working on is the use of AI or embodied agents, which is chatbots, in order to teach students language learning. And I've tested that with students, and they were blown away by the impact of AI on their learning. But at the same time, teachers are scared that AI would replace them and take their position. And this is not true. AI is just a tool to help students communicate and understand, and it can be also a scaffolding tool. But at the same time, it won't be able to replicate to replace teachers. And the problem is that teachers are usually overwhelmed. And I wanted to host a panel discussion on AI and especially chatbots. And one of the people were very reluctant to host this. And they said, no, it's going to replace us. And we don't want to hear about this. We don't want to get into a discussion. And I really feel like this is serious, like spreading bringing awareness about the role of AI is just a tool, and it doesn't reason like us humans. These are just neural networks that I don't think it will never replace the human mind. And one of the classroom discussions that I do with my students, especially when I saw that two of my students, they actually used ChatGPT to cheat, I didn't even penalize them. I actually turned the whole classroom discussion to, okay, tell me about the advantages and disadvantages of AI, instead of just penalizing them, okay, you get a 0. And so they actually brought up great ideas. It can be used as a tool to help us generate some ideas. And I was like, okay, if you use ChatGPT to cheat, actually you're going to lose those skills, and probably you're going to be replaced by AI in the future. So we as humans, we need to use AI as tools to foster and empower us, instead of just, hey, I don't know how to write. I have the writer's block. So I'm going to use AI instead. And then day by day, I'm using all those skills to communicate, and I'm relying on AI. And I asked my students as well, okay, so would you rather have a car, like a self-driving car, or drive by yourself? And they were said, well, maybe a self-driving car would be better. And I was like, oh my God, so you're going to have the cars to replace you. Also writing skills. Maybe if you work for an employer, that one day they will use the AI tools instead of you, and probably they will fire you. So guys, you're actually not seeing the future very well. You're actually relying on AI, and you forget that probably this could be the reason, not AI itself, that will replace you. You're actually giving it the justification to replace you one day.
Sure.
And so it was really a healthy discussion with students. And I told them, you know what, there are many tools to detect the plagiarism from AI, but I trust you, and I trust that this conversation will connect us, or will bring us to another dimension of integrating AI into our way of thinking, or how do we use these tools responsibly instead of banning it. Because if a student wanted to cheat, they will cheat anyways. And there are lots of resources. So why do we ban AI tools instead of just teaching a student's ethics about how to use it ethically and responsibly? This is the most important thing in education.
Sure. Thank you, Amini. Let me pose to the audience. A lot was just expressed there by Amini on the subject matter of AI being a tool. Do you feel the same? Let's take it there. I don't feel the same on that. But there are things that you just said that I express. There's a French billionaire by the name of Xavier Niel who opened up a school called School 42. Audience, some of you may be familiar, panelists, some of you may be familiar. His intention with this school was to open up a school for free education, free dorming, free housing. And the idea was to have a cohort of students that would come in and take an aptitude test to see if they can proficiently get to the next round. And if they can join this school. And they joined this school, and it was 24/7 accessibility for all students involved. But here's the rub. It was all AI level up learning. There were no teachers. Here's the other addition. Many of those students met success because they accelerated their learning development at such a rapid clip that companies here in Silicon Valley and elsewhere were plucking their cohorts from this school platform that had no teachers but a gamified way of learning. But here was the fail. You learned all of this hard skill, but there was severe depletion when it came to soft skill. And when they entered into the career path, many of these students met with, and companies that hired them met with high churn because they did not know how to interact with their fellow man and their human kind. Lubna, I have a real seriously and legitimate question for you. As someone that I know that's been chopping wood here, and we'll be brief because we have a lot to cover and we only have as someone that has been in the vestiges, if you will, of technology and exploring it, when we think about the potential for what we talk about disruptive technology, how disruptive is AI and will it be from your lens?
Is that it? That's the question? How disruptive? I mean, yeah, I was preparing myself, listening to everybody about what gives me pause and what excites me, and I love everything that I heard. Of course, AI is immensely disruptive. It's evolution on programming. It's thinking. I think it would be. It is a very, very powerful tool. It's a very double-edged sword, especially because it in combination with the rest of the stack of information and communication technologies, the power is in that they magnify at an exponential rate what is inside of us, what is whether it's the mental illness or that is which I think that's the root of it all, because it's very logical that what we're doing in society makes no sense. You know, how could we, after all this time, be even considering war as a means for peace or solving conflict? You know, it's very short-sighted. But it's so that's why I call it a mental illness, because the slightest bit of sensibility or logic would fix that. So AI would be dangerous to me if it continues to be applied to magnify what drives us today, which is greed, domination, fear, so on and so forth. And then we apply on top of that the beautiful capacity of the metaverse, which it used to be called Second Life in its first iteration, by the way. But then that's a reality, a visual, which combines the arts and the creativity to visualize materialize our imagination, which isn't any more beautiful, nor can it ever be half as creative as the nature that we have been given, this beautiful space. So this body that we're in is a manifestation of our consciousness and collective being in this format. So I think we can use the metaverse and AI to help us extend our consciousness to stand outside of ourselves and come to a realization that, wow, we are having a gift of our time here, and how can we expand our consciousness and our ability to exist beyond this format, rather than to use it to further dominate each other. And if that's the case, if we do that, it won't be long before we've reached the demise of humanity before the natural life of the planet. Sure. And yeah, so that's what I that's how powerful I think it is. I could babble forever, but I'll stop.
Thank you for sharing that, Shakar. I sit here as I heard what Lubna just expressed to us, and I sat here thinking about my times at Hacker Dojo in Mountain View between NASA Ames and Google, and us operating and building and working on hacking, making, and developing drones. And we often thought about what would happen if it landed, which this technology has, let's say, in the Department of Defense or DARPA or other different military defensive operation constructs in this world. And what would happen with this hive type technology, and how would it be applied? Would it be applied for good? What we came to appreciate is that even in the best intentions of the hands of the maker, that we make these things and we can have a dozen line items on how we use this for good. Ultimately, we see this technology in the hands of the wrong people, and what happens. And lo and behold, to this day, since Ukraine was brought up, we're seeing drone warfare unlike anything we've ever seen before with this type of technology happen in the skies of Ukraine, where Ukraine was considered a major technological hub of technologists that were building incredible things. And many of them have had to leave this country, which they may never return. Shakar, I have a real concern about our responsibility of us that are with us today, panel, audience. What are we going to do to move forward with a sense of humane urgency towards contributing to this cultural discussion of emerging technologies of artificial intelligence? Shakar, what are you doing about it?
I think that you said, like, the thing that you just said is like word to word what I was going to say, but I will add to it only one little thing that you didn't say yet. I guess many of us in this panel now, I feel safe now that I felt also the previous panel. Now I feel safe that many of us probably saw the robot dogs of I don't remember the name of the company now, and those bees with the swarm AI robots and brain, and all of those technologies, which obviously they are amazing as themselves, as a technological development. They are absolutely amazing. But as you said, these are stuff that are super explosive when you go and take them in the wrong direction or in the wrong hands. And the second thing that you said that I really liked and I really connected to is that doesn't matter how good we are as a maker, someone would find a use case. So we cannot think about a lot of use cases, but most of you probably know that porn is the first industry that takes advantage of technology. The second one would be video games or gambling, and then the next are coming after that. And these are like facts based on like a long history of technologies. And army or military is probably one of those as well. So we are in a trouble. And also another person this week during this week that I was preparing to this conference, someone asked me, but with all your opinions about limiting AI development and keeping humanity first and all, but what would we do if China is going to develop the AI? So it's like it's a battle, it's a Cold War now of development between China and the Western world, for example. And I asked myself, well, that's actually a very good question. But I still think that we need to, first of all, take a look inside of us, inside of our society, before we try to spy on others. And first of all, to make sure that we don't do anything bad to destroy us. And in my opinion, community is the only way. So we have to form some kind of community of ethics, first of all, to decide for ourselves what do we think about it, maybe by democracy or not democracy, it doesn't really matter. But these kind of discussions that we're having today, it's the very first step, I guess. And the second one would be regulations, because we must have some kind of limits, like we did, for example, with genetic engineering. That's two big technologies that have a very big risk on our future.
Shakar, thank you for sharing that. I'll say it, let me come out and be expressive on this point narrative as a reminder that I'll use them as an example. I like Meta on some of the things they do. With that said, I do not trust, and panel and audience, those who are with us, drop in the chat. Am I thinking wrong? I do not trust Mark Zuckerberg with AI. I do not trust him solely to deliver this tool that Amini graciously speaks about. I do not trust him as the tool that is going to help guide the future of my life in generations to come. I see this is because, narratively speaking, we still have a great issue when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm not taking it there because we just had a whole entire summit called She Superhero Engine. Shout out to our She Summit participants, and some of you are with us today, that expressly let us know the great imbalance between male and female in this industry. I do not trust Mark Zuckerberg to build the next tool of which we are going to ascend with great prospects of success. I don't trust it. Roxanne, how do we, the little folk, the wee folk, the ones that are far in the background, the ones that you don't hear from as much, how do we influence those that have $10 billion per annum to spend on the metaverse? How do we influence them to drive real impact towards hopeful change when it comes to accessibility, education, so forth and so on? How do we do this? Your mic, ma'am. Roxanne, we're going to unmute you. You were muted, please. No.
Everyone has a voice, no matter if it's big or small. Use your voice, use your agency on social media, wherever you can, wherever you feel comfortable. And this technology, I want to just go back to what you said before. The trust level is important. Trust has to be earned, right? And if we don't respect Meta in that way, we have to tell them why. And we have to show them examples of why you need to make your trust visible to us, because right now this is the AI was digital invisibility. Now it's visible to us, right? In many applications. Going back a little bit, over 10 years ago, I'm holding up this device. I was a Google Glass Explorer. And maybe you were too, and I welcome that discussion. But this device created an emotion of fear in people. And if we still engage in fearing what is inevitable, change is with us constantly. We can't move forward if we have these emotional barriers like fear. We need our voice to communicate. If we're fearful of Meta, why? And I'm pausing there because somebody mentioned pause, and the pause in life needs to be accepted. You need to pause for that reflection on what you feel your personally involvement is in using AI or the metaverse. And of course, there's going to be nefarious uses of this. We have not been able to, stop trafficking of people, human trafficking. We still have big global problems to embrace. That's right. Maybe AI can help us with some of those, maybe help us develop some solutions. And keeping that in mind, the United States does have AI bills in the legislature right now. I put that on my Twitter feed. So we need to embrace the Web3 consortiums, AI groups. We need to really put our footprint as small voices, because small voices one day may be turning into a collective voice, which we have here. And it's so important to not be silent if you're in any position, even as a user experience, to let Meta know, and the companies like Google and I'm going to bring over one of these things. How could we use this for any length of time? It's cumbersome, and even the smaller versions of this, we're not going to see that. I predict, this is my prediction in the future, we are going to have more transparency on how we use our information with intentionality for the betterment of our human existence. Otherwise, as you mentioned, Lubna, we may not exist if we don't collectively come together and work as a unified voice.
Roxanne, very well
expressed. You're taking up so much time.
No, you took it there, and we are all taking a little bit of time, Orkwe, as we move forward in this discussion. I'm sitting here inspired to ask me as a Black man. I just realized today is February 1st here in the United States. They call it Black History Month. I am limited to 28 days, but that's a whole different story. And for those that do not look like me, don't get so offended that we're talking about diversity, please, because what I believe is the more culture that you have contributed to the development of technology, the better your product will become. Let's just get that out there. The less culture that you have contributed to your platform, the less potent your platform will be. We need more women, community of color. We need all gender representation as much as we can get to contribute to machine learning and deep learning. And as I yet sit here and look at Oracle, and not to make you feel uncomfortable, but to see someone of color that looks like me is a far and few thing that I see in this space. And not for the sake of saying, hey, let's do this as a feel-good initiative or just bring on Blacks, if you will, or communities of color, just because we want to see another Black face. Do not hire me for affirmative action. You hire me because I level up your whole entire ecosystem. We want to be seen, all of us, women, communities of color, gender. We want to be seen as those that will level up your ecosystem, that bring real inherent value. And looking at us as technologists, Orkwe, what are your thoughts on us moving forward in cultural contribution at the intersection of technology?
So I think that the big tech giants can definitely do more. So recently, DeepMind announced a scholarship with a university in South Africa, and the goal is to bring in more Black people into the AI machine learning space. Because, like you said, more diversity we have in the space, the better the products and the tools we have in the space. So I mean, I had a recent experience. So I was talking to a team of game developers, right? So right. So the thing is, in the game space, in the game development space, about 40% of the entire budget goes to developing art assets, right? So this team was working on a game, and so I talked to them about Red Dead Redemption. That's the game that cost about $500 million to make. It took about 8 years to make, and it was a really big project. And so they were looking at this entire game. It's set in a 30 square mile of digital real estate, right? And so it took that long because human beings had to model the entire space. So they were asking me for options of what to do. And then I mentioned that also we can use neural radiance fields, it's AI technology, and we can just take 2D satellite images of particular locations and then use nerves to build out, the AI, to build out, a three-dimensional space, just like how Microsoft Simulator have done their thing. So if Microsoft Simulator wanted to use human beings to build out the entire world, right, 3D representations of the entire world, I'm not sure the budgets of the US would serve to build out the entire game, right? So by my contribution into the project, we're able to find a solution that really works. We use 2D images to make a 3D representation of the space. So I think more Black people should come into the space because really it's about competence. If you can discover these models and tools and you know how to use them to solve particular business problems and then contribute effectively to make sure that people work less, right? Because I mean you can use stable diffusion to train and produce game assets like potions using role-playing games. You can use all of these tools to just make convert maybe 40 hours of work into 40 minutes of work. Right? So these are all there, and I think anybody can learn how to use these tools, fine-tune these models, plug these models into the game environment and just make sure that everything runs faster.
Sure. Thank you, Arqui. Amini, let's go back to this notion of tools. And you're absolutely right. And something that you expressed earlier, you talked about that AI won't replace human intelligentsia. I agree with that. I know as complex as deep learning can be, and its arrival will do incredible things, perhaps far above and beyond machine learning in terms of the depth of its capacity. Let's talk about and kind of reel that back in and out for whom we build these tools for. If we're building tools, what are the best use cases when it comes to the advancement and the sustainability of humanity itself? What are you considering the tool use of AI in the metaverse, if you will, as the better tools to move forward to help and serve what?
Okay, so let me take that. Okay.
Sorry, that was for a minute. Thank you.
Yeah, so there are lots of tools, and I'm going to talk about education. So there are many tools in AI that would actually kind of like we talk about adaptive learning, for example. So AI can actually be adaptive to the students' learning, and it's kind of me as a teacher who tests the student, and then I realize that they don't have this skill. So I kind of go back and then provide them with the skills that they need. So there are tools that would track the students' performance, and also it would also track students' engagement. And when I was talking about conversational AI, I was actually not talking about it in terms of replacing teachers or teaching students like language learning, but students, especially those who live in countries that they don't speak English or a foreign language, or even those students. I have students who live like their whole families are in the US and they speak their own language, and probably they graduate from high school in America and they still language learners, and they have to spend like 2 years in ESL programs so that they can go to college. So that's a waste of time. And so chatbots have proven to complement learning outside the classroom. And at the same time, we also talk about social emotional learning. And so a chatbot that was also created in terms of giving positive feedback, that would actually make students able to be active at school. I have seen students who had lots of problems like domestic violence, lots of mental illness issues. And when they started using the chatbot, because they need to find a job or they need to go to college, when they started using AI, they changed. They were transformed in class. Instead of being the shy student, they became the active student who has self-confidence because they actually experimented with that outside class. And I just want to briefly go back to also the community and people have a voice. Because 2 years ago, and I want to just talk about Meta because I really echo what you've said before, and I come from the Middle East. And 2 years ago, Meta was grappling with a scandal in the Middle East because of some issues, and people's voices were silenced. And this, you can actually Google that. And whenever you post something, you're trying to voice your freedom of expression. Your post is deleted or your comment is deleted, and the people figured out that they can actually create in a way that the algorithm cannot detect what you're writing, and or some developers, they created some kind of an old alphabet in which the algorithm cannot detect it. And so this is the power of the community, and people, they will find a way to voice what they want to say, and that's the power of the community. I always say not one person will never scare me to express my opinion. And this is something that I was really wowed. And also many of the many of the people, they went to the iOS store and then they put like a 1 star for Facebook, and that would actually prompted Mark Zuckerberg to apologize to everybody and say that that was a technological glitch. At the end of the day. So I really voiced Roxanne and Shakar when they said that the community and also everybody has a voice. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Emily. Thank you for sharing that. Panel, one last question that we have. We'll go around and then we'll be done. We'll never get this time back again, how precious these moments are. And we'll kick off with Lubna and we'll ask for brief remarks from each of you. I sit here and right now, to this very moment, there are many people, those that I know personally, that have been laid off from their jobs, no longer gainful employment. And many of them were working and building and merging technologies. We are seeing the sunset of platforms such as Altspace, for those that are familiar. I can remember hanging out with some of those guys at Rainbow Mansion in Cupertino while they're building the platform ever before it went to Microsoft. We talk about the heyday, it's ready, it's arrived, this technology, but we can't even sustain the jobs of those that are building these technologies, how severely disruptive it is. My question and final question that I want each of you to touch on briefly is, what do you believe is the next important step that we should be focused on when it comes to the intersection of technology and humane growth? Lubna, we'll kick it off with you briefly.
It's a day-long topic, but I think foundationally, it's about changing our motivations. We are measured, at the end of the day, we are measured on profitability at any cost. That has to change. Until that changes, everything else, I mean, you can go to jail for doing the right thing as the head of a company. So that has to go. And to the points that all my fellow brilliant people here have said, it's our responsibility then as the developers of these technologies to ensure that there is equitable access to that technology. So and to understand the strengths and weaknesses or what can be done with it, the double-edged nature of it, so that we can have a better awareness of how we can manage and how we govern the growth. Sure. And again, we all have a voice while we still have it. So we need to start electing ourselves, not someone else to be having ourselves. So we need to elect ourselves to stand up for what we believe in. And it's really, at the end of the day, technology and everything else we invent is supposed to make our lives better. So it's not about really having jobs or not. It's having about quality of life. So where we place emphasis, what I started with, and how we measure value is what matters. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to contribute. I can't wait to spend more time with all of you.
Thank you. Shakar.
I think that, well, for the person who just lost a job, that's really difficult, especially in these times. And I actually don't have any or a lot of recommendations except of try to hold on to your network and let them help you, because that's, and then I would say on the other side. So the people that do have a job yet,
yes,
we should also try to help our friends and colleagues. So normally in my colleagues don't understand why I keep trying to help people to get jobs or to find to do networking or to help talk to another guy or to find another link in this world with a person that might be interesting for you. These are things that the people that are doing communities and live communities as a daily life stuff, maybe people don't understand us, but I think that this is exactly it. The fact that we network, the fact that we communicate, the fact that we create links, and maybe you can call it creative. Maybe I can link it also to what Cecilia said in the video about imagination and creativity. Maybe this is all the point. This is maybe where we are a little different as of today from the machines. or this AI or whatever that will be. But I would say keep on networking, keep on linking each other, keep learning how to build a fire and not how to write prompts as well. Not discard technology, because we need it to understand it, but we need also to go back to the basics of society, and also to know to enjoy the social, just being there with some group of friends outside in the wilds or in any other situation.
Thank you, Shakar. Roxanne, let's unmute you real quick.
Yeah, sorry. I echo what you're saying, Lubna and Chakar. It really comes down to having a good relationship, a good social relationship, and a family relationship, and building on that, whether it's in a digital environment, whether it's mediated by some kind of digital technology. It's embracing compassion and empathy for each other. And that's the humanity that we all need to remember comes first, not the technology. It's technology will always exist. We have to embrace our humanness and keep that first.
Yes.
And we need to continue to explore our social emotional, as you mentioned, Ami, social emotional learning is key even for adults. Most of us, I guess maybe if you're millennials, maybe you've received some social emotional awareness in school, maybe at college, probably not, is probably the K through 12 environment. But we need to learn how to identify what makes us uncomfortable and why, address our fears and not get hijacked by our brains and let that fear spill over into social media and create very, very negative and harassing things. We need to put in context our feelings and back them up with reasonable explanations and feedback that we all could either agree with or disagree with compassionately or passionately, and be able to explain that we are the same. We're human beings all living on this beautiful planet that we need to love. And we are one with the planet, and we need to absolutely embrace the needs to have compassion for all beings here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Roxanne. Orkwe, please.
So I agree with Shakar and Roxanne, but I will also add that when one door closes, I think another one opens up. But sometimes we can look back at the door that has closed so long that we fail to see the one that's open. Yeah. So the AI domain is a $15.7 trillion domain. The metaverse is a $5 trillion domain. I'm sorry I speak to the business side of things a lot.
No, please.
But I feel that there's so many problems in the world that all of these two technologies, and in fact a combination of all of the emergent technologies we have today, can solve. There are mental health issues that can be addressed with metaverse solutions. Virtually every job that exists today can be reimagined using a lot of the models and AI tools that we have available today. So I think that people who have been laid off, my heart goes out to them. But I feel that if they can thrive in these big tech environments, then I'm very sure that they can apply their unique and very high level talent to build all of these solutions that can make the world a better place.
Thank you, Arkwe. And finally, Amini, with the brief remarks, please.
Yeah, so I agree with everyone, and I just from an educational perspective, because I've been all my life in education as an educator and as a teacher trainer, I think that we should reflect on how we perceive education. Because when people struggle and don't find jobs, that probably actually goes back to how they were educated. And I see education, especially the metaverse, as an opportunity for us to fail. So it's the freedom to fail and learn from our failure, accept the challenges, have growth mindset instead of fixed mindset, and then succeed, and then come up with novel ideas. So,
indeed. Thank you so much, Amini. To the panel, thank you for joining us today with this roundtable discussion. We appreciate you sharing time, a thing that we don't get back, and that seems ever more fleeting as we go forward and move forward in life, if you will. And to our audience and panel. We have Cecilia coming up to give us a few brief remarks that will ultimately help conclude this discussion that we're having on AI and the intersection of the metaverse and humanity. I will ask, almost on beggar's hands, if you will, to those that are watching, those that have heard what's been said thus far, screenshot, share a link, share these stories with others. And if anything, keep it in your heart and share with others. We'll continue to move forward with our next speaker panel. We hope for you the very best in your endeavors. Our gather was well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shukran. Thank you.
Thank you.
Concept for a generative creativity. I wrote 13 concepts on the image generated by AI program on the basis of reflection made in recent weeks with all the people who have spoken to me from all over the world who attend various online communities. I think we can't stop a wave when it's too big. Just like we can't put a limit on an erupting volcano. Everything that is rejected sooner or later is regulated and become everyone's property. Before judging, criticizing, and feeling deeply offended in our ego, let's try to understand. What is the future of art with AI? AI software for image generation are new tools. How to use them is entirely up to you. Your action is the most important thing. Your thoughts are essential. The pixel unites us. Your background makes the difference. Your constancy in research makes you an artist. Brainstorming gives birth to ideas. The art is an evolution. We need to talk about generative creativity. Random become your choice. Before judging, try. Right. The rights of these images generated by artificial intelligence are not yet clear. I don't remember how many attempts I made, but Google found an image that has the same cut as the one generated by the AI software by me. The figure is very similar, almost superimposable, and the most obvious difference is in the colors. So stores like Getty Images, Shutterstock are right to prohibit loading of images made with AI software. Some months ago, Adobe announced that AI will be integrated with Photoshop Elements and Premiere Elements 2023. And Adobe Stock has accepted the upload of AI-powered images. Shutterstock has released a press release stating that it has opened a collaboration with OpenAI. Google announces that it has inserted AI into its systems and lists in some of the latest articles all the innovation based on AI. And finally, Microsoft bought 49% of OpenAI. Does this mean that someone will be able to establish rules for AI? During my years of study at the Academy of Fine Arts in Florence, anatomy was the basis of drawing. We did a very rigorous study of shapes, and drawing hands and feet was a fundamental exercise because they are very difficult to reproduce with a drawing. AI also show us that it's very difficult to reproduce hands and feet, and if they were real. AI is thriving on aggression. The more aggressive you are, the more you steal. I mean, among AI imagers, and the more you think you stand out in the crowd. Alas, it's not so. How can you not produce deformed images? How can AI legal images be made? I leave the debate open by recalling that in front of analog works of art, such as, for example, La Primavera by Sandro Botticelli, you can find it in the Uffizi Museum in Florence. You would remain for hours and hours observing all the 500 plant species, including flowers, fruits, and herbs that make this painting a masterpiece within a masterpiece. And this don't happen in front of AI works. Thank you for listening.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, no, this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
Yeah. There's no mercy in this world, just hunger-thirsty persons in different versions. Each new update, that shit worsens. Why? Pull back the curtain and you'll see the different vermin. We all have different burdens that all seem to cause disturbance. Yo, so do me a favor, don't treat me like a neighbor. Don't need the different flavors of your problems just to savor. I've got my own issues, I need a comb to get through. Don't need to groan with you, just go get your own tissue.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
That's it, the end of the song. Next time you'll sing along.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate so much of your time that you gave us to share in community, to gather. In a few short weeks, we have GatherVerse Summit 2023, our second annual summit, where we have many dozens of speakers, voices, people. We're coming to explore and share expressly on accessibility, education, equity, community, safety, privacy, wellness, and ethics. What you heard today were just a few expressions from those who are building in this great big world, and we need it to matter because it should. As we move forward, there are generations hoping that you and I will do the right thing when it comes to what we build. I see it prudent, and I see the opportunity that when we put people over platforms and drive humanity first, we always come out on top. I want to thank you all for being part of the GatherVerse community. I hope that somebody will share this story with others. We look forward to exploring with you again. Take care. Peace.